Hello, I'm Carl Seibert. Thanks for joining me. I did a recent blog post where I talked about using keywords to support what we've written in the caption field. Well, okay, that's fine. But then when I did add keywords to the picture that I was talking about, which is this family snapshot of my cat, I added some keywords that did indeed support my caption. But I also added some categorical keywords that came from my controlled keywords vocabulary. And I did it right here in the IPTC editor, or alternatively, in the template editor in Photo Mechanic. This video is about how to make your controlled vocabulary keywords appear in the keywords field right in your IPTC editor of choice. So we're going to go through how to do that. So first, let's take a look at what I did. Now, I did this in the reverse order before. First, I did my categorical keywords, which all came from my controlled vocabulary. And then I added these essentially synonym keywords to help make sure that when I search for this photo, which has, I'll admit it, a really minimal, pretty terrible caption, but then again, it's a family snapshot of my cat, really, what am I going to say? So we needed a little support in the keywords for this weak caption. But then there are categorical keywords that would go on this picture anyway. Let's add some. So Donut is a member of the family. Yeah, he's a cat. All right, family. Comma space. Donut is in fact a cat. So I'll do cat. Cats, that's Donut. And Donut is Donut. And as you can see here, I'm typing 3 characters of each one of these keywords. And the keyword is popping up. And all I have to do is hit enter. And I have entered keywords from my controlled vocabulary. These are my controlled vocabulary keywords that we're seeing here. And we'll do home, same thing. H-O-M, home, click, and it's there. Obviously, that's quick, and it's easy, and it's protecting this picture from my horrible typing and ridiculously bad spelling. So the question is, how did we do that? So as we know, anytime we have this flyout triangle thingy beside a field in Photo Mechanic, if we press the button to access the flyout beside that particular field, we'll end up with a controlled vocabulary list of values that we could click on and add to that field. If Donut was in Los Angeles, which he isn't, I could click Los Angeles, and there we'd have that. Okay. That's fine, but if I've got a whole controlled vocabulary of a couple or 300 keywords, that picking it out of the list thing is going to be pretty awkward. So the idea of using a type ahead to fill in a controlled vocabulary keyword right here in this field becomes really pretty appealing. Before I go there, let me show you one more thing about if you do in fact fly out the flyout. With the flyout exposed, and here I'll slide it up just a little ways here, if I then type a few characters, I will in fact pop my cursor to the right place in the flyout for those characters. And I'll mention here that in this particular case, Photo Mechanic is case sensitive. So I just typed capital C-A-L and my cursor popped to California. And if Donut was in California, we could enter the keyword that way. But it's still pretty awkward. It's not anywhere near as easy. Take it back out again. It's not anywhere near as easy as doing it right here. C-A-L, California. There we go. So how did I make that happen? Well, let's take a look. First, we'll just cancel our way out of that. Nah, let's not save that. And then we'll go up to the main menu. We'll go to Edit, and we'll come down to Settings in the Edit menu. And we'll slide across to the first item that we see here, which is Set Autocomplete. And that's exactly what we want to do. Now, if you're like me, you'd think that this might possibly be in the Preferences menu, because that seems logical, and that's kind of where it might belong. If I was putting it someplace, well, I didn't, and it's in this menu. And I suppose that's the trick of it. As long as you know to look in this menu, this all becomes pretty straightforward. So if we turn autocomplete on, we tick this tick box, autocomplete when I type, and we can choose a number of characters. I chose 3 characters. 3 characters seems about right to me. 2 is going to trigger too often, and I'm going to get huge lists of words, and I'm going to have to choose from a list of words each time, which I can do with the up and down arrow keys. That's no big problem. 3, it's about right. More than 3 is, let's face it, more than I want to type. Given that it's me, if I type 4 characters, a pretty good chance I'll type a typo into it. Okay, so let's turn on my mouse locator target thingy. And we see down here, we got some more tick boxes. So we have variables. Yes, if you use variables at all in Photo Mechanic, by all means, turn that thing on for autocomplete. But what we care about are these two. For IPTC XMP field lists, yes, turn it on. And here is the critical one. This allows us to do our controlled vocabulary thing. When editing IPTC fields, allow completions from that field's own list. So what this means is that the values that we've put in for keywords, or for that matter, let's say for cities or states or countries or something like that, will be the only values called when we type in that field. So if we put a list of values for keywords or cities or states or whatever, we go in that field, we start to type, bingo, we're going to get auto-completions from that list. So how cool is that? So we'll just OK that, and I'll pop back to my IPTC editor here. There we go. And we'll take a look by going through the flyout and going to Edit Keywords right here. And here we have our master keyword list. And if we scroll down this list and take a look at what happens when we pop out our flyout, lo and behold, it's exactly the same thing. So all we have to do is either load or build right here in the master keywords list in this Edit Keywords dialog a controlled vocabulary list of keywords, and bingo, we're good to go. Whenever we start to type, it's going to try to complete from this list of keywords. It's worth pointing out here that this is a big difference between Photo Mechanic and most photo management programs. Most photo management programs, for reasons that may or may not be legitimate or that we may or may not agree with, keep a keywords list, and it's not a controlled vocabulary. It's every keyword we've ever used in that program. It's every typo, it's every misspelling, it's every dumb idea, it's every keyword that somebody else used from their controlled vocabulary. It's all there in some sort of mishmash. And in most of those programs, indeed, when we start to type, it's going to autocomplete with whatever piece of nonsense is laying around in this all-encompassing list of every keyword that's ever been used in every photo that has ever been touched by that program. Photo Mechanic is not that way. In Photo Mechanic, we are in control. We import the list of keywords that we want to use, and that's what gets used. It is, in fact, a controlled vocabulary. I may as well point out, while we're here in the Edit Keywords dialog, we can edit these lists, we can export them, we can import them, we can load them, change them, we have snapshots, we can change them in an instant. So we can have more than one controlled vocabulary at our fingertips to use whenever we're in the keywords field. And this master keywords list is the same master keywords list that is used here in the keywords panel. Okay, so that's all good. But what about if we use the hierarchical keyword tool in Photo Mechanic, the structured keywords panel? This thing here. What if we use this sometimes? And this is the case for me. Most of the time, frankly, I just type in the keywords field. I type my 3 letters, I hit the button, and I move on to the next keyword and the next picture. But sometimes I use the structured keywords panel. And I like to keep my, let's call it my real master structured keywords list in this panel with the hierarchical structure. Well, can I take my keywords list from this panel and move it over to be my master keywords list, which will work in the flyout and will work with the type ahead in the keywords field? And the answer is absolutely yes. All we have to do is save our keywords list out of the structured keywords panel, Yeah, we'll replace it. And we can then edit that list and make it work in the other dialogues. Now, I will point out here that this is a one-way process. We can do this in this direction as many times as we want, but we can't synchronize back between the two halves of keywording in Photomechanic. Now, what that's going to mean for us is that as time goes on, and I want to add more keywords to my controlled vocabulary, I'm going to have to add them in both places. Either that, or I need to come over here to structured keywords, add the new keyword, and then go through the process of editing the list so it'll work in my master keywords list so that I can access it by typing ahead. Okay, so with that said, let's take a look and see what's involved. We'll just close this momentarily, and we will go ahead and pop up Text Edit. Now, this is the text editor that comes with the Mac operating system. So anybody who has a Macintosh has this thing already in their system. It's already paid for. I won't say it's free because you definitely paid for it, but it's already paid for and it's ready to go, and we can just go ahead and use it. All right, so now let's take this window and we'll make it a reasonable size. And we'll go ahead and we'll start editing. So here we see our controlled vocabulary list from our structured keywords field, and we can see that it's formatted to be structured. And I talked about the format in another video, and you can refer to that if you want to edit it. You can build these things from scratch right here in a text editor. And in fact, we can build the keywords list that we're building today from scratch right here in the text editor, or any combination of editing it here or in Photomechanic's own interface. So let's see what we have to do here to make this thing into the perfectly flat one keyword per line format that we need for our master keywords list for our flyouts. So the first thing we want to do, probably most of you in your keywords list in your structured keywords dialog have got several controlled vocabularies. That dialog is capable of holding as many controlled vocabularies as you want. Photomechanic actually ships with a sample controlled vocabulary from David Reichs. So you probably have yours and that one at least, and we need to slim this thing down for use as our type ahead. So we've got a little bit of editing ahead of us, and it's probably best to do that right now while we have all the formatting in here so that we can navigate properly in this file. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to take these first 3 categories or 4 categories of keywords and bang, we'll just edit them out. And we'll pretend that we went through the whole file and we have now only the controlled vocabulary that we care about, that we want to reformat. So let's have at it. So first off, let's destructure this thing. We have our levels of our hierarchical keyword structure set up with tabs. So the first thing we're going to need to do is find and remove all of the tabs from this file. So let's go up here into Find and Replace, and we'll click into the Find field to make it active. And tabs are a tricky thing. Not all text editors have a convenient way of removing tabs. And if we just tried to type a tab in here in this field, what would happen? Well, it would just bounce us out of that field. So we'll type back into it. Here in the corner, we have a magnifier icon. So if we click on the magnifier icon, we can go to Insert Pattern. And that brings up this interface. And lo and behold, here we have a tab. If we click on it, it inserts a variable for tab in Find. We go down to Replace, and we'll just replace it with nothing. And we'll slide across to the other side, and we'll just go Replace All. And bang, all of our tabs are gone. So now we have our nice unstructured one keyword per line file format, but we've got some more work to do because we still have some labels in our file. We'll come back to those in a minute, but we have some synonyms in our file. Now, a synonym in Photomechanic structured keyword list file format is set off by curly brackets. Now, 99% of us, 99% of the time, are going to want our synonyms to be available as keywords when we do our type ahead. So all we have to do to make that happen is we just need to take these curly brackets out of here. Well, that's certainly simple enough. If we go up to Find, clear it, and I'll type first a left curly bracket, replace all my left curly brackets disappear. So now I'll go back to Find, I'll clear it. I'll type the right curly bracket, and we'll replace all. And now all of our synonyms have turned into regular keywords. Okay, cool. So now we have some labels to deal with. And here's one. Whoops. Here's one right here. Labels are just that. They're used in Photomechanics structured keywords dialog to help us navigate. They just literally label a topic or a section or whatever. Labels don't export to be keywords. So the chances are we don't want our labels to be in our controlled vocabulary for us to use in the keywords dialog. We want to just get rid of these things. Now, there aren't that many of them, frankly, in most people's controlled vocabulary list from the structured keywords dialog. But here in this case, in TextEdit, we have a way of getting rid of these things all in a couple of keystrokes. So it's too cool not to use. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go back up to the Find field. I'll clear it. And we look at our label, and our labels all begin with a left square bracket. So I'll type a left square bracket. Now the labels all have stuff inside them. They have a string of characters, and we don't know what the characters might be. We have one here that says gender. We have one that says materials. I start my labels with a tilde so that I know in structured keywords that they are indeed labels and I don't get confused. So we just want to zap anything that's in between these straight brackets. So I'll go back to my Insert Pattern dialog, and we'll see what we've got. Here we have an option for any characters. Sounds good. That's basically any string. Tildes, words, spaces, letters, numbers, whatever. Sounds good to me. We'll pop that into Find, and I'll type a right square bracket because all of our labels end with a right square bracket. And they're actually all each on their own line, so they really end with a carriage return that we just can't see here. But hey, if we go back to Insert Pattern and take a look around, lo and behold, we have a line break character. So we'll just add that to our Find string. Once again, in Replace, we will replace with nothing, and we hit the Replace All button, and bang. All of our labels have evaporated, and we now have our control vocabulary formatted in the appropriate format. So all we have to do at this point is save this thing out, and we're done. We've got a file that we can import to be our master vocabulary list, and then that will pop up as our type ahead controlled vocabulary. So we just go Save in TextEdit. TextEdit does not have a Save As, by the way. So you should start out working on a copy when you do this. Alternatively, you can just output your text file twice, save one as a clean backup, and work on editing the other. It's kind of weird. I don't know why TextEdit doesn't do Save As. But where were we? We were saving. And now we'll move over to our Finder, and here's our file. And remember, we just saved over the file because TextEdit doesn't have a Save As. And hopefully this is not the only copy. Hopefully we've exported a second copy to use as a backup. In any case, if we go here, we can just take this file and we can rename it for our current use. And I'm just going to call it Master Keywords, and I'm going to give it a date, and that'll be that. Now, I can go ahead and take this file, and we can use it to populate our control vocabulary for our type ahead list. Cool. What if you're using Windows? Windows doesn't come with TextEdit. Windows comes with Notepad, which is a perfectly fine little text editor. It doesn't have the super cool graphical front end for regular expressions, So we're not going to be able to zap our labels in one click. And Notepad handles tabs a little bit differently. So we'll jump over to a PC and we'll accomplish the same process in Notepad. So here we are in Notepad on Windows. Now, you don't have to use Notepad or TextEdit to do this. And in fact, if you have much use for a text editor, you probably won't want to use either one. The only prerequisite for this particular use is that you have to be able to delete tabs. So in Notepad, the plan is basically exactly the same as it was before. We're going to go through here, and the first thing we want to do is, while we still have our formatting in place, if we want to do any editing, now's the time. So we'll just edit a few things out of the top of this, and we'll pretend that that's all we had to do and that we're all ready to go. So now we have to remove our tabs. So we just find a tab and sweep over it and copy it to the clipboard. Then we go to Find and Replace. Our tab is actually already pasted into our Find field. Replace with Nothing, just as we did before. Replace All, and boom. And now all of our tabs are gone. When I did that, I made sure that I swept over only one tab, because if I got two of them, when I replaced, I would only be replacing tab, and I'd have to go back and make another pass through and get the rest of the tabs, which is no big deal. So next up, just like we did before, we're going to convert our synonyms into regular keywords. Find and replace, and let's clear that. And I'll do the left curly bracket, replace with nothing, replace all, boom, they're gone. I go back, I do the right curly bracket, like so, replace all, they're gone. Now our synonyms are converted into regular keywords. Now in Notepad, we don't have the option of zapping our labels in one terrible swift click. So we're just going to have to go and delete them manually, which is not that big a deal because there really aren't that many. We just sweep over them and we just zap them. And here in this particular case, we seem to have some carriage returns to get rid of. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll move on. We can make this label zapping process a little easier by using Find. And I'll just clear it. And I'll put the right square bracket in it, which is, I think, what was actually in it before. And now when I do Find Next, it's going to find the lines that are labels, and Find Next again, and sweep delete, and one extra delete to get rid of the carriage returns. And there we go. And so now, when I'm done, I can just save out this file as well. We'll call it Master Keywords once again. And that's why we're doing this whole thing, because I can't type very well. And we'll put a date in it. And I believe in Notepad, we're going to have to put the extension in manually, and we just save it. And that's it. So it works in Windows, in Notepad, works in Mac, in TextEdit, and works in either one in the third-party text editor of your choice, just as long as it's got a way of deleting tabs. Okay. So I'm back again at my own laptop, and I'm actually taping an insert because I thought of a question that actually turned out to be pretty important and cool that I just hadn't thought of before. What if you could use this type ahead function to insert a hierarchical string in your keywords? Okay, so I should point out that once keywords are applied to an asset, and they're sitting there doing their job of hopefully returning that asset to a search, then in that case, there is no such thing as a hierarchical keyword. Keywords are keywords. The whole hierarchical business just makes it easier for us to apply keywords in a string. Okay, so with that said, what if I could go ahead and do my type ahead, and I had the option of inserting a hierarchical string? So here we are with our donut snapshot, and donut's categorical keywords are family, cats, and donut. The trick here is that if I start at the bottom, if I start with donut, the type ahead will work. If I start at the top of the hierarchy, obviously the type ahead won't work. If I have a picture of a squirrel and I start with animals and then I do mammals and then I do rodents, I could do squirrels and I could do ferrets and I could do whatever else is a rodent, and I would just have dozens and dozens of things. It'd be clogged up and it wouldn't work. But if I start at the bottom, or start wherever in the hierarchy that I want my string to start, the type ahead trick will just plain work. So if I type DON and I get the string, donuts, cats, family, I hit enter and it's there and I'm good to go. So how can we do this? Well, pretty much the obvious way. If I go over here to edit keywords, and I'll just scroll down, and there we have it. If I enter donut, comma, space, cats, comma, space, family, comma, space, that string is what's going to come up when I type capital D-O-N in my type ahead. And I could do the very same thing in the text editor, working with the text file itself. I think that's pretty cool. That saves a bunch of keystrokes and saves a lot of time. And it's the question that I never thought to ask, and I'm really glad that I eventually did. So there you have it, a type ahead controlled vocabulary right in your keyword field, or for that matter, right in any other field in Photo Mechanic that has a flyout. And we have synchronized, albeit it's a one-way process, but we have synchronized or imported our keywords from our structured keywords dialog into this dialog. So as long as we're careful to keep them both up to date, we'll be on the same controlled vocabulary page. So that's all pretty cool. As usual, jump in the comments or reach out on social media and let us know how this works for you. If somebody knows why TextEdit doesn't have a save as, jump up and let us all know that too. And, of course, until next time, mind your metadata.